Hello everyone, Jack here again at The Vinyl Voyage. So today I'd like to speak to you a little bit about one of my favourite genres of music, and that is neo-psychedelic music. So you might ask, what is neo-psychedelia? So for me, it came out after post-punk and it emerged really in 1980 with 3 LPs that were released. First of all, we had Robin Hitchcock and the Soft Boys, where they released Underwater Moonlight, a fantastic neo-psych album, and for me probably the first one. You had Ian McCulloch and Echo and the Bunnymen, again in 1980. They released Crocodiles. And then we had Julian Cope and the Teardrop Explodes with the neo-psych album Kilimanjaro. All these albums, they all looked to the past for inspiration. They were very taken by English psychedelia and predominantly looked to English psychedelic bands for songwriting and inspiration within their sound. But on top of that, they also try to use vintage instruments of the time and studio techniques and studio equipment from that time as well. So really, neo-psych as a movement, it might have begun there and in England, but it's really spread across the world, especially in recent years. We've got neo-psych bands popping up everywhere. There's a big scene in Australia. We've got some great psych bands like Goat out of Scandinavian countries. Neo-psych bands aplenty emerged throughout the 80s in America with the Paisley scene, and then obviously bands like the Flaming Lips, and it's really come into the mainstream, so there's loads and loads to dig into. So before I start then showing the records that I'd like to show, if you're enjoying my channel, please give it a thumbs up or subscribe. That would be fantastic. So to get into the records then, I'll first begin with this beauty here. This is 25 O'Clock by the Dukes of Stratosphear. So when the Dukes of Stratosphear first released this in 1985 through Virgin, it was billed as a great buried treasure, pardon me, from the golden age of psychedelic music, 67, 68. They were kind of seen as this long lost band that was being re-released. It was released on, was it 8 Records, 1985 on April Fool's Day, and it was in fact an April Fool because it wasn't a long lost treasure that had been found in some studio vault somewhere. It was actually the brainchild of XTC's frontman Andy Partridge, who had always been a lover of English psychedelic music, bands like Pink Floyd, Tomorrow, stuff like that, July. And this is really his homage to that type of music. It's absolutely fantastic. I think it was originally envisaged as a longer album, but they ran out of studio time. He did it, I think, as like a kind of offshoot between The Big Express and Skylarkin, 2 great XTC albums. But songs on here are brilliant. 25 O'Clock really sounds like early Floyd, like Syd Barrett, period Floyd. Bike Ride to the Moon, again, is another one. Really good stuff. So that's the cover, which I love. Inside cover. And this is almost a perfect example of neo-psych, because Andy Partridge's manifesto, when he put this album together, he had 3 rules. The music must borrow from English psych bands from 67 and 68. When he recorded, he would only ever record the songs twice, so he would only take 2 takes. And thirdly, where possible, he would only use vintage recording gear. So yeah, really good this. They released a second album. I don't have the second album on vinyl, but I've got this compilation, the Dukes of Stratosphear, Chips from the Chocolate Fireball, and this has Sonic Sunspot on it as well, so it has the first album and the second album. Yeah, really good. When you hear it, it just sounds like it's come out of 67 or 68. It's really good. So next I'd like to show you, this time from Los Angeles, we've got the Rain Parade and part of the Paisley Underground movement. Rain Parade along with other bands like the Bangles, Green on Red. This is a really great album as well, led by David Roback, who then went on to form Opal and then eventually Mazzy Star. It's on Zippo Records. This has got a more jangly sound to it. So it's got that kind of jangle pop, kind of bird sound from around, you know, when the Birds released Fifth Dimension. It's got some good sitar in here. It's kind of like backwards fuzzy guitar sounds, but that underlying sound is very jangle pop. It's really, really cool. This is the only one they did with David Roback, and it's by far their best album. They did an EP after that, Explosions from the Glass House, which is really, really good as well, but for me this is better. Next up then, to England and the amazing Spiritualized. So this is Everything Was Beautiful. I think, was this their last album or their second from last? Can't remember, I think it was their last album. But yeah, this is more kind of orchestral psych. You know, Jason Pierce, the main man for Spiritualized, is well noted for having layer upon layer of music and building up, you know, all these sounds. There's usually a little bit of a gospel influence in a lot of his music, but this one kind of harkens back to the sound of their classic Ladies and Gentlemen, We're Floating in Space. Even with the opening track, Always Together With You, it's got those same little hospital bleeps that you heard within that classic album. Also, it's got a kind of similar cover as well, where we've got this prescription box. You probably can't see it here, but it's all in Braille. But yeah, really, really good. I love Spiritualized. Maybe not their best album, but still really, really great psych. So moving to Western Australia and the city of Perth, we have Tame Impala with Currents from 2015. This was their third album after Inner Speaker and Lonerism. And while we said that a lot of or most of the neo-psychedelic bands look backwards in time for inspiration, Kevin Parker, the driving force behind Tame Impala, he does something different on this album. While his first two albums were very, very guitar heavy, there's barely a guitar to be heard on this album, and the guitars that are within the mix are absolutely drenched in effects. This is very, very synth heavy, lots and lots of keyboards, lots of studio effects, layered with just, it's almost like a kind of swirling cauldron of dance beats, programmed drums, some of them, and all these synth sounds, keyboard sounds, but it's still unmistakably psychedelic. The kind of dreamy vocals that are layered in there as well. It's like kind of almost like dancey dream pop album. It's got that kind of trippy cover as well. Yeah, you'd probably say that Tame Impala were the kind of spearhead of the neo-psychedelic movement that's sprung up in Australia. You've got other great bands like Pond, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, lots of others. So next up then, from the US, we have the amazing Jonestown Massacre, led by Anton Newcomb. This is Take It From The Man, their third album, released in 1996 on Bomb Records. They also released another two albums in that year, and their Satanic Majesty's Second Requests and Thank God for Mental Illness. But for me, this is the pick of the bunch. Absolutely fantastic album. Some great psych songs on here. Vacuum Boots, Who, the song Who, that second track, the backing vocals on there just sound straight out of 1967, something that Pink Floyd might have pushed out. Some of the later songs like Dawn and Cabin Fever are really slow, kind of trippy songs. While a lot of this album does sound very garage rock influenced, it's kind of got like a kind of Stones feel round about the time of albums like Aftermath or Between the Buttons. But yeah, it's really, really good. Produced by Larry Thrasher of Psychic TV. I just love the Jonestown Massacre. Yeah, great album. A lot of tracks on it as well. It's like pretty much a double. So back to the UK and Merseyside for the Coral's 10th album, Coral Island. So absolutely beauty of an album. This, it's kind of pop psych, really easy to get into, really upbeat songs, very catchy. I love the way the bass just pings around in Coral songs. They're really upbeat. I think this album might have got Album of the Year by Mojo Magazine in 2021. It either was Album of the Year or it came in second. If it didn't win, it should have won. It's so good. But some great songs on here. I love this first side, Welcome to Coral Island. Lover Undiscovered is a great song. Vacancy is really good. But it's a concept album built around the idea of a fictitious seaside resort. The type of seaside resort that the choral would have maybe had in their own hometown. And it's split into two sides. So the first record is all about the heyday of this seaside resort and some of the colourful characters who visited it. And then the second record is all about the kind of the darker days when the seaside resort had started to dilapidate and people weren't going anymore to visit, and it's got a kind of darker, sadder second half to the album, but it's all linked together with this fantastic narration from James Skelly and Ian Skelly, two guys in the band. Their grandfather provides the narration and links the story together, and it's kind of done in a similar vein to the way Stanley Unwin narrated The Small Faces, Ogden's Not Gone Flake, kind of similar flavour to that, but yeah, quite British psychedelia, but yeah, it's certainly very upbeat for the most part and really, really easy to get into. So yeah, that's really good stuff from the choral. Next then, back to the States and Los Angeles for the amazing Death Valley Girls, and this one is Under the Spell of Joy. So really, really like the Death Valley Girls. They've got such a mixture of kind of sounds and parts. They sound a little bit at times Sabbath. I think they've got almost like a 50s girl group sound, you know, groups like the Shangri-Las or the Ronettes, and a lot those kind of 50s melodies, but they've got, you know, that thumping drum beat, those really amazing 60s organ sounds. There's always like a lot of chanting going on. I think they've got like kids chanting in one of the songs, kind of occultish lyrics. Obviously there's all these nods back to the late 60s. Yeah, I think they're so good. Some great songs on here. Under the Spell of Joy, the title track's great. The Little Things is a great song as well. But yeah, really, really good. There's also some killer sax in this. It's almost like psych punk. The way this sax comes in and out of some of the songs, it's really, really good, a bit heavier. Next then, back to Australia and another band out of Perth. This is the amazingly named psychedelic porn Crumpets with their first album, High Visceral Volume 1. So I've got High Visceral Volume 1 and 2, both really, really good. I think they were released a year apart. They're quite hard to come by now, but there is a reissue that combines both the albums. But yeah, this is on What Reality Records, and I think yeah, about 2018 this was released. But this again is kind of harder psych, a lot of intricate riffs, heavy guitar. So again, just some great songs on here. Marmalade March is really good. Surf's Up's really cool as well. But they draw on quite a lot of influences, but it is a bit heavier, not as poppy. But I love the vinyl. This kind of dreamy blue marbled vinyl. See, another one of these great bands that have come out of Australia in recent years. Let's see. And then moving on then to another fantastic Australian band. We've got King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. So this is my favourite of their albums. This is Paper Mache Dream Balloon. And while a lot of their albums are quite heavy, they go off in a lot of different directions. You know, they've got krautrock albums, electronic albums, thrash albums, you know, heavy psych albums. This one's more like acid folk, psych folk. It's very dreamy vocals, lots of layered acoustic guitars. But the thing I really love about it is the flute that they have in some of the songs. They've got some amazing flute lines running through it. Yeah, it's great stuff. It's my favourite King Gizzard album, this one. I like the album cover as well, with these like little plasticine figures. This edition of it, you've got the normal album on disc 1, and then on record 2 it's an instrumental where they strip away all the vocals and harmonies, and you've just got the acoustic guitars, the flute and the other instruments. Yeah, this is like in a unipack. Let's see, some great songs on here. Bone is really good. Trapdoor, fantastic song as well. Cold Cadaver. It just lists the songs, and then you've got some more cool artwork with these little kind of paper, in fact paper mache, I'd imagine, paper mache figures. So moving back to the US and Athens, Georgia, for the fantastic Of Montreal and their amazingly titled 6th album, Satanic Panic in the Attic. This is on Polyvinyl Records. It was released in 2004. But look at that album cover, look at that album art. It's just amazing. So Of Montreal's main man is Kevin Barnes. He usually plays all the instruments, writes all the songs. He's the main driving force behind the band. It was his brother, I believe, that did the artwork. But yeah, this is a great pop psych album. More modern than a lot of the other albums I've shown. But Kevin Barnes is one of these guys that just throws the kitchen sink at his album. It's fantastic synths, keyboards, great guitar work, bouncy bass, really upbeat. But the lyrics are just great as well. Songs like Lysergic Bliss on track 1, Disconnect the Dots is really good. My British Tour Diary. Side 2, I like the title Vegan in Furs, a play on the old Velvet Underground song Venus in Furs. But yeah, Of Montreal, they've got so much great stuff to explore. Loads of different albums that go in different directions. Sunlandic Twins is a really, really good album. As is, I like False Priest. It's a little bit more rocky. So Of Montreal were part of a group of neo-psych bands who were loosely connected together in this collective known as the Elephant Six Collective. It included other bands like Apples in Stereo, Neutral Milk Hotel, and Olivia Tremor Control. So when Olivia Tremor Control disbanded in 2001, Will Cullen and a number of the other members formed a new band called Circulatory System. So this is Circulatory System's debut from 2001. Unfortunately, it was only ever released on CD in 2001. It wasn't until 2020, I think, that it got this its first release on vinyl. It's only been released in the US up to now, but you can get it through eBay for a reasonable price. Really, really good. It kind of sounds like kind of 1966 Beatles, round about Revolver. It's got a kind of Revolver sound to it, I think. But yeah, that first song on it's great. Yesterday's World, Joy's a great song as well. It's just really, really catchy. Great production. It's a lovely, lovely pressing as well. Great artwork. Just a great piece of neo-psych. So yeah, that's the end of my video then. Finishing on Circulatory System. There's loads more out there. There's loads that I've got to explore. There's some of my favourites that I've got on record. If you've got any suggestions, different bands to check out, different neo-psych stuff to listen to, I'd love to hear them. Please put it in the comments. If you liked my video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, please do. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Bye now.